In OSRS, it is possible to shoot 2 cannonballs in the same tick with the Dorf multi-cannon. Now, I'm willing to bet that this is the first clip you've ever seen of this, and the reason I'll make that bet is that the mechanics here are pretty complicated. So, let's explain the mechanics. Let's start with a simple example where we have 2 NPCs who are clearly eligible for the cannon to shoot at. They're both within the cannon's targetable range, represented by the black squares, and the cannon has line of sight to both of them. So does the cannon choose the target closer to the cannon or the target further away? There are no surprises with this one. The cannon chooses the target closer to the cannon. Next, we're going to look at an example with 3 NPCs. So we have the same 2 NPCs as before, but we have a 3rd NPC added to the mix. It's important to note that there's a torch between the cannon and the 3rd NPC, such that the cannon does not have line of sight to the 3rd NPC. Therefore, it's only the 2 original NPCs that are eligible to be targeted by the cannon. Now, this one is confusing. Introducing the 3rd NPC caused the cannon to instead target the furthest NPC away. So why does this occur? Notice that I have the cannon's targetable range split up into 3 different squares. Mod Kieran posted this image of the targetable cannon tiles back in 2017. And if we zoom in, we can see that each direction can be represented by 3 square areas. The cannon actually searches these areas one at a time. So the cannon's first going to search the 3x3 area for a target and then check eligibility, whether or not the cannon is capable of shooting that target. If an eligible target is not found in the first zone, it'll move to the second zone and do the same thing. And then finally, it will search the 11x11 zone for an eligible target. Target eligibility checks line of sight from the cannon's center, but it also includes things like, do I need a Slayer task to attack the target, is the target in combat with another person in singles, etc. Now this is a critical point. The cannon will only check eligibility of 1 target per search zone. If the target eligibility check fails, the cannon will just move on to the next search zone. But what if there are multiple NPCs in a single search zone? How does the cannon choose which NPC to check eligibility for? Well, here's a heat map. Perhaps unintuitively, the cannon prioritizes NPCs closer to the center of each search zone. If we go back to our example, we see that the NPC behind the torch is in the dead center of the 5x5 search zone. And since only 1 NPC per search zone is ever checked for eligibility, this means the other NPC is ignored altogether. Just to drive the point home, let's see another example. In this example, the highest priority NPC in the 11x11 zone is again behind the torch. The cannon only checks 1 NPC per search zone for eligibility, which is the NPC behind the torch, so the cannon completely ignores the other 2 NPCs altogether. Let's just quickly walk through our example step by step. The cannon first tries to find an NPC in the 3x3 zone, but there are none, so it moves on. Next, the cannon finds a single NPC in the 5x5 zone, prioritized by distance from the center. This NPC is checked for eligibility, but since it's behind the torch, the cannon does not have line of sight. And so finally, the cannon moves on to the 11x11 zone, finds the final NPC, checks eligibility, which passes, and then shoots. The same concept applies to NPCs in singles. The cannon is prioritizing the NPC closest to it, and then an NPC who's being attacked by another player moves into range. And this causes the cannon to skip the NPCs in the 5x5 and shoot the NPC in the 11x11. There's one more key mechanic that we have not discussed yet. Every search zone will only produce a target if the center of the search zone has line of sight to the target. In this clip, you can clearly see that the cannon has line of sight to the target, but the center of the 5x5 search zone does not. There's a wall between the center of the 5x5 search zone and the guard. Intuitively, you probably would have thought the cannon could target the guard here, but this is not the case. However, if we move the guard over to the 3x3 search zone, the cannon finds it just fine. To recap, the logic looks something like this. Select one single target from the 3x3 zone, check eligibility for cannon fire, and if eligible, then fire. If the cannon did not successfully fire, then do the same thing for the 5x5 zone, and then finally do the same thing for the 11x11 zone. But why do the search zones behave so weird? If you recall, I briefly mentioned earlier that the search zones prioritize NPCs by distance to the center. This prioritization uses Euclidean distance, which is derived from the Pythagorean theorem. Essentially, the search zone examines every NPC in the zone and selects the one that minimizes delta x squared plus delta y squared. And this is a lot of work. And all this accomplishes is creating a priority map that looks like this, which seems both pointless and unintuitive. Furthermore, line of sight is required from the center of the search zone. This means the cannon is doing two different line of sight checks before it shoots a target. If you were the developer tasked with designing how the cannon should target, is this what you would come up with? Probably not, so why was it coded this way? It all comes down to a command in RuneScript called npc_hunt. Fair warning, the video from here on out gets pretty technical, but I urge you to bear with me because this stuff is pretty interesting. Also, if you've made it this far, you gotta leave a like. I think that's only fair. So RuneScape's codebase is split into two parts, being content and engine. I don't want to get into the weeds about the separation of concerns here, but the big thing is that content is written in RuneScript and the engine is written in Java. RuneScript is a proprietary programming language built and maintained by Jagex, meant for scripting various actions in the game, like cutting a tree or shooting the cannon. Briefly look over this example shared by Modash on Twitter. This is the script that runs when you left-click open a door on Zaya. Notice how the script calls the functions locdel, locadd, and loc_findAllZone. Each of these functions is an example of something called a command. Commands are functions that are callable in RuneScript, but the function definition is implemented as part of the engine in Java. So what does the command npc_hunt do? Well, the npc_hunt command takes in a coordinate and a radius. In this case, let's say radius is 2, and it returns a single attackable NPC within the search radius. It also takes a 1 or a 0 as a third argument for whether or not line of sight should be checked. If multiple attackable NPCs are within the search radius, then it chooses the NPC that's closest to the center using our Euclidean distance function. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yes, npc_hunt is the command used for cannon's search zones. When the cannon attempts to find a target, it will make up to 3 different calls to the npc_hunt command. If we were to actually write out the rune script for dwarf cannon targeting, it would look something like this. First, we're going to find an NPC in the 3x3 zone, check its eligibility, and then potentially fire. Next, we're going to do the exact same thing for the 5x5 zone. And finally, if we make it this far, we do it for the 11x11 zone. I've spent the whole video trying to tell you how weird the dwarf multi-cannon targeting is, but all of a sudden this reads completely simple, reasonable, and straightforward. But all the weirdness stems from these 3 npc_hunt commands, and if you recall, these are implemented by the engine. The dwarf cannon targeting script that we see is written in RuneScript, but the implementation of the npc_hunt command is written entirely in Java. All of this was written back in 2003, which means it likely would have been Andrew Gower himself to write the implementation of npc_hunt. Whereas someone like Paul Gower might have been the one to write the dwarf cannon script, although this is a complete guess. The point is that there were multiple devs with their own concerns working on different parts of the game. The actual mechanics of the dwarf cannon targeting ended up being emerged rather than designed. You see, the npc_hunt command is also used for things like making a goblin attack me when I click this crate. All of a sudden, it makes perfect sense that they would do all this math in order to choose the closest goblin to me. The Barbarian Assault egg launcher also operates on the same mechanic. When the cannon is fired, it chooses the closest NPC to the cannon based on Euclidean distance. A fun fact is the math actually changed on August 14th, 2024. Originally, the distance metric used Euclidean distance, shown on the left, but with an engine update, the distance metric was updated to use Chebyshev distance, shown on the right. Now you may think an update like this would go unnoticed. I mean, who's looking that closely? But the BA community noticed within about 90 minutes after the update. After 4 weeks, this was reverted, but it definitely egged on the meme that Barbarian Assault just randomly breaks. Now, let's take a step back. At the beginning of the video, I promised that I'd explain this clip of a single cannon shooting 2 targets simultaneously. If you look closely, you'll see the NPC called Grip standing in the cannon's first search zone. If you try to shoot Grip with the cannon, you get this message that you can't attack him. Once you spacebar through this dialogue, then the cannon will shoot its double shot. You see, the dialogue opening is the key here. Let's go back to our rune script and work through this. The first NPC hunt is going to select Grip as a target, but Grip is not an eligible target, so he cannot be shot. The NPC eligibility check will look something like this. Mind you, this is not the actual code, this is just a working example. There's going to be some exception for Grip that opens a series of dialog boxes. When you open a dialog box, the script suspends until you press to continue. Well, after the script continues, the eligibility check returns false because Grip cannot be shot. What's amazing is that after the script resumes, it's going to keep trying to find a target. The target it finds after the script resumes is the target in the top left. Now this part is slightly hard to explain, but the cannon shoots on a 1-tick timer. The cannon script is scheduled to run once every tick, but the cannon timer aims to start the cannon script once per tick, and it doesn't really matter when the script finishes execution. In our example, the cannon script starts when the interface opens. The script suspends execution because of the interface, and then the script finishes execution once the dialogues are continued. But from the perspective of the cannon timer, it's been several ticks since we started a script execution. The timer therefore starts a new execution of the script and then shoots a second target. For the record, this concept of scripts suspending and resuming is exactly what allows the player to receive double logs during 1.5 tick woodcutting. The script from 1 tick suspends for a tick, and then on the next tick it resumes, but then also runs again from the beginning, just like the Dwarf cannon. Thank you everybody for watching. If you have any questions, just leave a comment. Or if you want me to explain anything on a different topic, you can request it and maybe I'll make a video on it.